What's up, everybody? It's your boy. I'm back with another analysis video, and in this video I wanted to look at the very first time that I beat a Grandmaster in chess. So this happened in 2010. It was actually in the summer, so we're coming up to the 11-year anniversary of this game. As you can see, I have the white pieces, and I was only a FIDE master at the time. In fact, as you can see by the rating, I didn't even have a 2300 rating. So I earned this FIDE Master FM title in what's called a Canadian Zonal. So it's a tournament where if you score a certain number of points in Canada, you actually just get the title. You just earn it just like that. So I wasn't even FM strength when this happened. I was 2100. I was playing a tournament in Toronto, and I was playing against Grandmaster Josh Friedel, who is a very strong player. And back then, 25-27. I was only 21-31 rated. So let's jump into the game. It was a very typical Hamilton first move. You guys already know D4, and from here I think it's fair to point out that if you look at the opening, I just didn't know a lot of theory at this point. This was a point in my chess career where I wasn't really studying it. I was still in school, and as we can see here, pretty much after bishop g5, it's like, yeah, I knew how to get up to here, but I didn't know any concrete theory, and my opponent quickly exposed that. After he played the move h6, bishop h4, c5, it's an interesting position where already, I think, if you don't know theory, you're kind of getting into trouble. White basically has one playable move, which is pawn takes pawn. All other moves look quite subpar to me. Something like, bishop takes knight, and grabbing this pawn results in triple pawns, and it definitely doesn't look very good. So if we look at the move c5 again, d takes c5, definitely the move that I ultimately ended up playing. But after the move g5, I'm quickly whisked away into this position that I would probably deem as theoretical, but I had no idea what was going on. So my opponent's playing very quickly, and after knight e4, queen c2, knight a6, I mean, at this point, I was just getting freaked out, and I tried to get my king to safety, but if I had tried to save the pawn, for example, with the move b4, then there would follow knight takes c5. This is kind of a remarkable looking move. Let's say pawn takes, the queen would come and give a check to my king, right? And I only have one square to go with the king, as this knight is doing some work covering important squares. And let's say black, plays a move like rook d8. This is the most accurate move, but there are lots of other moves that work as well. Bishop d7, as you can imagine, is also super strong. But this move just plans to go pawn takes pawn, unleash the rook, and I mean, my king is just absolutely dead. None of my pieces are playing. Talk about good habits. This is me, 11 years ago with no habits at all, clearly, because I don't have a single piece developed on the king side. So after knight a6, b4, definitely a good move, but after knight takes pawn, I can't take it back. I have to play, another even crazier move like bishop e5. And for me, at this stage of my chess career, with the type of positions I was getting and the fact that I wasn't studying, there's just no chance that I play a move like this or a sequence like this. So what did I do? I castled. I said, you know what? Let me get my king out of trouble. I see that this queen wants to come here. Maybe now I can play b4 next. So my opponent plays knight takes pawn, and I play the move f3. Now, in my eyes, this forces my opponent to take. I'm going to take back. I'm threatening rook takes h6. So something like takes, and this threat means that my opponent might have to play like king g7, for example. And I was like, oh, this is manageable. I'm going to take this pawn, threatening the knight. This is all good stuff for me. Now imagine my surprise after move f3 when my opponent ignores the threat to the knight and instead plays bishop d7, intending bishop a4. And this, again, is just like, look at these pieces. Every single one of them is trapped. Can't join the game. Knight h3 pretty much doesn't get any closer to the action. So these pieces are just sad the way that they're sitting there on the king side. Bishop d7 was quite the shock move. If we can look at what happens if I took my opponent's knight, bishop a4, this queen has to go somewhere. takes, and in this position, I think black does well to take this way with check. And then after I move my king somewhere, just grab this pawn as well. And although it is 2 pieces for a rook, right? That's the actual imbalance here. Obviously, there are some pawns as well for black, but I mean, normally 2 pawns and a rook for 2 pieces might be better for black, but white certainly should have some chances. Here, basically no chances. Not only does my queen have to move, so black even has the initiative, but again, these 3 pieces are not playing chess today. They signed up for chess, and look at them. Not a single one has moved. So this is a very bad position, would just be lost on the spot, which is why I decided to play b3. Right? And you know, I'm not saying this is a great move, but hey, this is what my brain came up with, is say, look, I got to stop bishop a4 at all costs. That's the only move I have. Another pawn move. I've moved all 3 pawns in front of my king and no pieces on the other side of the board. This is like shaping up to be one of my worst games ever. You can see that evaluation bar on the side of the board. It is already at -7. -7. I am not even down a pawn. Can you guys imagine? -7 is the equivalent of, like, you know, a rook in a piece, or like a rook in some pawns, or even a queen for some compensation. This is not there's no difference in material, and I'm apparently dead lost. And I believe it. Look at this. Terrible, terrible development. My opponent takes, and now, you know, in my brilliant brain, I unleash b4, thinking, okay, if bishop a4, I get to trade the queens and win a piece somewhere down the line. My opponent plays knight b3 check, of course. I move my king, and after knight d2, this is where I realize it's, you know, the position is just dead lost. If I go for this 2 pieces for a rook exchange, which is almost always good, but what comes next is my opponent's going to play something like this. Happy to do a queen trade. He's going to bring the rooks, and he's basically going to queen that pawn along with playing rook d1 check. And again, all these pieces on the back rank, I just can't play this game properly. So this would also just not work out. I played the move king a2. After calculating this, I realized, well, there's just no hope for me. My opponent was playing relatively quickly as well. I'm just getting absolutely crushed here. The move bishop a4 hits my queen, and I come up with bishop e5. So bishop e5 is probably the start of my thought process towards what ends up being, you know, one of my greatest moves maybe of my career. Bishop a4 definitely has the X-ray attack on the queen, but remember, this knight doesn't really have anywhere to go without losing that knight. So at least I can keep that in the back of my head, and if the knight goes to c5, the only way to defend the bishop, otherwise I take the bishop, then it would also be under attack by the pawn. So I have a few reasons to be okay with the bishop staring at my queen here, even though it looks scary. Knight c1 is check, but I can take with my queen. So I'm like barely hanging on enough to play bishop e5. Now, instead of bishop e5, you might say, why didn't I develop any one of these pieces? Guys, there's just zero chance that was happening. Apparently, I did not get the memo that you're supposed to develop your king side. a5. I mean, my opponent's basically 2 moves away from absolutely crushing me. So when in doubt, or rather when in Rome, you know, if he's doing a5, I'm doing h4, I guess. And after pawn takes, I decided to do the exact same thing. Now again, this is like absolutely the very last moment, because black is about to maybe move this bishop, maybe move this knight. There's, you know, rook coming down to a3. Everything is about to 100% collapse in my position here. And I think my opponent basically just thought the win was in the bag. Decided to get a little bit too fancy, maybe a little bit, I don't know, like a little bit too overconfident maybe. I think my opponent just didn't have a sense of danger here. Based on my position, got no pieces doing anything. You know, I've got my king wide open, and I've only got 1 bishop. I'm like, you know, pretty much the only piece this game that's made it past halfway on e5. So I just don't think there was a sense of danger in my opponent's head. And after the move queen d5, you can see that eval bar just zooming up the board. And I mean, I've shown this a few times before, but, you know, take your time if you haven't seen it. Queen h7, and believe me, when he played queen d5, if I was the player that I am today, if I was the streamer, YouTuber I am today, I might have had some, you know, might have got some enjoyment out of this position. Like, oh, let me take my time, let me look him in the eye, let me grab my queen slowly, put it on h7, really enjoy that moment. But when he played queen d5, I was like shaking. It was like I grabbed the queen so quick and I just slammed it on h7. I had never done that so quickly. I slammed it on h7. I was so happy. I was spending all the time that he was thinking about his move here. You know, I thought he was going to take this pawn. When he reached for the queen, I thought, oh, he's going to take this pawn for sure. Then I had nothing, and maybe I just resign. And then he drops it here, and I played this move in about 1 second. I wanted to play it basically before it disappeared. You know, it was as if that move was going to float away, and I'd never have it again. So I played this move so quickly, queen h7 check. He's forced to take, and then, well, he resigned here in this position, but just to show you guys, he would be forced to take. I would take on h6, protected by my pawn. This bishop covers those squares as well. The rook covers here, so he's only got 1 square, followed by rook h8, supported by the bishop. That is a checkmate, and that got me my first win against a grandmaster in my life. I was 2100 at the time. Obviously, you can imagine he was quite shocked by this. Definitely one of the more stellar moves that I've played in my chess career. I remember at the time, this was a tournament where, you know, there was one of those scorecards beside the table where you fill out the result and you give the scorecard to the arbiter. So usually the winner of the match does that. So I fill out the scorecard, we both sign it. I have the result 1-0. I hand it to the arbiter, and the arbiter was like, sorry, I think you got the result wrong. Like, I think you entered the result wrong. It says here you won. I was like, yeah, I won. And the arbiter actually just couldn't believe me. I had to go and find my opponent and like double check and confirm that that was actually the result, because so many people had walked by the board when the position was like this, right? And this is a position where, you know, it's basically minus 10 in this position. So, you know, arbiters walking by, maybe my friends are walking by, other chess players, other GMs. There's like, oh yeah, it's a 2100 getting absolutely annihilated by a GM. And guess what? They were right. I was getting absolutely annihilated. So when they hear us setting up the pieces and standing up for the chessboard 10 minutes later, they're going to assume that black won this game. So it's just a funny moment of me needing to convince even the arbiter of the tournament and some of my friends that I had actually won the game. So I remember that moment being quite funny. But queen h7, there you go. That was the key to winning this game. It was obviously pretty special for me to be able to uncork a move like that to get my first win. But I think it was clear that my habits and my Nimzo Indian certainly deserve and needed some work after this game for sure. But yeah, that is my first win ever against a Grandmaster. It propelled me to many more. You know, eventually became a Grandmaster myself. I don't think I've played a move in my career which is as nice as this. And even to illustrate that, I mean, we have the chess.com YouTube channel. There we go, chess.com. And recently, as you can see here, about a week and a half ago, we have, here we go, my best move. Mon Hamilton breaking down his best move. And I selected that move right there, queen to h7. So shout out to Josh, by the way. I'd like to think he's a good friend of mine now, and I've seen him at a number of tournaments, and you know, I think we still kind of joke back and forth about that move. And I think in our career against one another, he still has the plus record against me. He beat me in a number of other games, but I got that one win over him, and it came at a point in my career when I was, you know, 2100 and hadn't committed full time to being a chess professional. So it's quite a special result as well. The game also made it on chessgames.com. Most games end up making it here, but specifically it made it as a chess.com, or rather a chessgames.com game of the day. Amon's got to do what Amon's got to do. There you go. So it was the game of the day. What does that say? October 19th, 2012. We made game of the day here. And so this game did receive a little bit of extra attention, and I have seen that tactic from my game in a few tactics books and puzzles as well. So a little bit of notoriety there for the game, but yeah, that was it. It was a special moment for me. Beating a 2500. It's not something I thought I would be doing when I was just 2100. And I hope you guys enjoyed that brief rundown. The game was not very long. It wasn't a very well played game by me, but it had a cool move at the end. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. The first time that I'd ever beaten a Grandmaster in my career.